Okay, this is die making. So these. I use these dies on my press, and so I make these. It's a really fast way of making tiles. So I'm going to be making them today, and this is how I do it. There's a special kind of plaster you use called hydrostone. That's really dense when it hardens, and it's the best kind of. It's really the only kind of plaster you can use to make these dies. But it's kind of a. The technique to make these is not. I've taught myself how to do this, and it's kind of tricky. But once you figure it out, it's very doable. You have to take clay and form a dam so that the plaster is trapped in here. So right now I'm putting clay around the edge so that I'll flip this over and press this on the table, and no plaster will be able to spill out it won't be able to spill out. So I also have to put plaster. Oh, you're welcome. So I also have to put clay all around the bottom, all along the surface of this table, because the plaster will stick to this too. And it also, when I put the clay here in the bottom, I'm going to smash this all around and just do a very thin coat of this clay all around the surface. When I'm pressing the clay in the press, the clay needs to escape. So I'm also creating a very slight gap that will allow the clay to escape from the press. So if it didn't have this gap, the clay would probably damage the tiles that are being pressed, or something could happen. It could even crack the mold, possibly. This is kind of the miniature version of what the larger tile companies use. The press that I have, actually, the company doesn't make them anymore because I couldn't make any money making them. Luckily, I was able to get 2 of them. So it's called a tabletop press. And it's the press that you saw me pressing the leaves on earlier today. And it uses a unique type of system called air release. So instead of the typical plaster molds that you use, this requires an air compressor, and it's possible to press hundreds of tiles a day opposed to maybe 10 at the very most using this method. But you have to have one of these presses, and like I said, the big tile companies like Matawi Tile and Pewabic Pottery, they have the larger version that costs, tens, $20,000-$30,000. So this press cost about $1,000. But you can't get them anymore, so it's kind of unfortunate. You can just watch eBay or, who knows where you might find one. Now I have to create a gap to fit these tiles in. These are going to be the tiles that this new die will press. I carved these last week. Vincent. Thanks, Deb. Then I played at Hope College too for 2 years, and it was on the varsity as a freshman. So right now I'm just fitting the new tiles I'm going to press. Or the new tiles that are going to be used, that I'm making this die for. Vincent. Okay, now comes like the interesting part. So inside of this, the reason why it's called air release is because air pressure is forced inside the plaster, and it causes air to be forced out of the out of this special kind of plaster that I use. And when it does that, it actually acts like an air hockey table, and it lifts the tiles out of the plaster and allows them to slip out of the mold, so you can produce lots of them at once. And it's relatively new technology, I believe. And you can actually make these without this metal ring. You can just pour it into plaster, but you have to be able to attach a nozzle to it to hook up the air compressor. And you also, that's what this metal helps doing. And then this also will fit on a press. So if you don't have this metal, then you won't be able to attach it to a press. And if you have the press, you can definitely produce more tiles than if you just were doing it by hand. Vincent. 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 What are you doing? This is some kind of chicken wire or now I have to get the mold duct tubing. So I don't know who invented this stuff, but I think it was made specifically for this die making. But it's called mold duct tubing. So it's basically like a fabric tube that will be embedded in the plaster, and the pores in this tube are so micro, they're so small that the plaster doesn't get absorbed inside the tube. So there ends up being the cavity inside the tube that allows the air to be forced through it, and then it's embedded in the plaster, so the air pressure is forced through the tube into the plaster, and then the air is then forced out of the plaster, and it pops the tiles out. So, you know, who knows how anyone thought of that idea. So now this has to be attached to the screen because this will hold the tube inside of this frame. So now I'm just using small zip ties to attach. No, the cat is right. He just snuck out here actually, and now he wants to go in and get food or something. He wasn't planning on being out here this long. Right, Vince? So now now I'm attaching the tubing. I'll let him in a minute. I'm just getting used to this live video feed, so I'm not sure how much, it doesn't allow me to see how much battery power I have. So hopefully it'll stay connected. If not, I'll pick it up where I left off. If this all of a sudden disconnects. I'm going to do like 3 of these tonight, so, if it disconnects, I'll just charge the battery and start on the other ones. So right now I'm just wrapping this around here. I'm leaving a gap of approximately 1 inch. Basically, what you're doing is you want the air pressure to be distributed evenly throughout this die that I'm making. So I'm just evenly wrapping this around to to get an evenly disperse the air pressure as it's once I hook it up to a air compressor and to the die, to the press. So now I just have to clean this up, snip off everything that's extra. Really shouldn't waste that. I should probably measure out exactly how much I need. I haven't done that yet. No, this will be embedded. This screen and this cord will be embedded inside this mold. And it's permanently there. It has to stay in there. So I have about 60 of these rings, and they all, once this is embedded, I can never use this again. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Then you also stick in, I'm going to let the cat in out just a second. Okay, I'm back. See, when I first started buying these presses, I looked into getting one of the large presses, the kind that Matawi Tile uses, and this is an example of something they would use. This probably weighs about 80 pounds, maybe 100, no, maybe 80. So, I mean, at Matawi Tile Works, every single one of their tiles has a big, huge die made of this, like this. And this thing will be attached to their giant press. It's hydraulic, it's all electrical. So I have a miniature version of this. This press costs like $20,000, $30,000. So I bought this to see what it was like. I can actually use this myself without having the press. It just weighs a lot. It's not quite as efficient because I have to lug it around and flip it over and mess around with all that weight. So Matawi Tile, which is a really well-known tile company in Ann Arbor, I'm sure they have some artist there or someone that knows how to do this, and they're making those giant molds like I'm doing for every one of their designs. And I think they do 4 at once. So you'll see here I'm doing 3 at once, but these are I'm doing 6 here at once. And these are just going to be like 1x1 tiles. So that big die ring I just showed you, I could have 4 5x5. I could have 4 5x5 tiles in that big one. So this is like a miniature version of what they do, but so, if I wanted to I have 500 designs. See, so one of the things that make my business stand out is that, Matawi Tile, they're not going to have 500 of those die rings because that's too much of an investment. They probably have 100 or 150 or something. So I have over 500 designs. So one of the things that make my business stand out is I have so many more designs than they do. One of the reasons is that I didn't buy that big press and I didn't become dependent on that big press. I have this little press. I can do some of the repeat tiles like the state of Michigan, special orders for like businesses that want several tiles for their customers. And that's why I'm doing this here, because these 1x1s take forever to just press one out by hand. With this press, I can do 6 of them at once. And these are going to be cabinet knobs or magnets. So it's one of the benefits that I get to take advantage of, and not being a big company like they have, is that I can make many more designs than they can, because of just how I'm set up to make tiles. So basically what I'm doing now is you just kind of have to fiddle with this screen and get it stuck in there. There's no real magic way of doing it. If I had a welder, I could probably spot weld it or something. But so now this stays right here like this. And now I have to make the plaster. So I just ordered a brand new box of plaster from Runyon Pottery Supply in Clio, Michigan. And this isn't the normal kind of plaster. Almost all 500 of my molds are made out of this kind of plaster. This is like the old-fashioned plaster tile mold. This is plaster that I buy down at the Home Depot or the construction supply store. The plaster that the guys use to do drywall. You get it it's like $20 for a 100-pound bag of it. I can probably make 15 molds, more than maybe 20 molds that size with it. This stuff is called Hydrostone. And I don't know what it was like initially made to do, like what it was designed for, but it's a really dense plaster. It's much more dense than the typical plaster. And it costs about twice as much plus shipping because there's nowhere up here that has it. So I have my old trusty scale here. No, it's not. I don't know what it's just gypsum cement, but it's I don't know if I can answer that question. You know, there's gypsum. It does say gypsum cement on here, but there's different kinds of There's hydrostone, there's hydrocal, there's like 3 or 4 different varieties, and each one has a different density. And I don't know exactly. When you order this, there's different companies have different names, so it's one of those weird kind of things that, you know, depending on what supplier you're using, they might call it something different. But yeah, it says gypsum cement. So this is one of the critical parts, is getting the quantity down. I've done this enough where I can just kind of tell how, by the texture of the plaster, I can tell how much you know, if it's ready or not. You'll see in a minute. So I need 5 pounds of this to make one of these dies. And then I'll be right back. I'm gonna get the. I need to get 4 cups of water. I'll be right back. Okay. Yeah, so now I have 4 cups of water.